I hope you're not going to be upset if I'll get off because I have to finish off my Pesach guide. I'm already 3 weeks late.
Okay, let's go.
Gamatim, sei gebencht.
So this year, because Pesach is on Saturday night and Motzei Shabbos, there are a lot of different things we do this year, different than all other years. It's not so common for Pesach to fall out this way. And Ritz Hashem, we are going to go through the halachas this week of Pesach on what we do before Pesach tonight. Go through that tonight, and God willing, next week we'll go through the halachas of the night of the Seder, how it's different on when the night of the Seder falls out on Saturday night. So the first item that we're going to discuss is the fast of the firstborn. In order to thank Hashem for saving the firstborn from the firstborn Jews, and Hashem slayed all the firstborn of the Egyptians. So to thank Hashem, all firstborn fast. Ordinarily they fast on the day before Pesach. So that would mean this year they would fast on Shabbos. You can't fast on Shabbos. So the fast this year, instead of being on Shabbos, it's going to be on Thursday. Now, when Pesach falls out on Friday night, the fast is not on Thursday, it's on Friday. So how come this year the fast of the firstborn is on Thursday? The answer is, Alter Rebbe says that you're not supposed to set a fast day to begin with. In Koven L'chatchila, you don't set a fast day to begin with to be on a Friday. And therefore, since we are going to choose a day to make the fast, so we're not going to choose the day of Friday. However, on the year that Pesach falls out on Friday night, the time of the fast of the firstborn is supposed to be on Friday, and therefore, in a year when Pesach is Friday night, the fast of the firstborn is on Friday. But this year, since the fast has to be set by the sages when it should be, because it can't be on Shabbos anyways, so the fast is going to be on Thursday. So on Thursday morning, that's when all firstborn have to hear a siyum. It's not our custom to fast. Instead, we finish a book of Torah, and we celebrate the celebration of conclusion of the book of Torah. And God willing, we're going to have Yosef Waxhal is going to conclude the entire Seder of Mishnayos, all Mishnayos. Ritz Hashem, one of our Bali Asiyums, be great simcha. Anyway, so when you finish, when you hear the siyum, that exempts you from fasting. That's the first item of business. Then comes Thursday night. Thursday night is a time when we need to search for chametz. Ordinarily, we would search for chametz on night of the 14th. Night of the 14th is Friday night. You can't search for chametz on Friday night. So instead, we search for chametz on Thursday night. Usually, if you're checking chametz, searching for chametz before the time, before the night before Pesach, let's say, as Alter writes in Siman Taflam Amud Vav, if someone's leaving their home early and they want to search for chametz before they, I think Charles, you had this question last year, I think, 2 years ago. If someone searches for chametz before the night of the 14th, they don't say a bracha. But this year, since this is a time when everyone has to search for chametz, therefore the halacha is that you do say a bracha. Since the time of searching for chametz of everyone is the night of the 13th, so it's different than a year when you would search early and you wouldn't say a bracha. This year, because the set time to search for chametz is the night of the 13th, we do say a bracha. As the Alter writes in Siman Taflam Dalas of Aleph, Makdim and Akol Livdik, everyone checks earlier, one day earlier, and they say a bracha then. And after we search for chametz, we make the declaration of Kol Chamira. Kol Chamira is said twice. The first time Kol Chamira is said is for all the chametz that we don't know about. There is chametz that we do know about, and we intend to continue eating. This year, we're going to continue eating chametz on Thursday night, and on Friday, and on Friday night, and on Shabbos morning to have the meal of Shabbos, as we shall see soon. So therefore, we're not declare in Kol Chamira, we declare all the chametz that we don't know about, that we haven't found in the search, to be ownerless. That's what we recite in the first Kol Chamira. We've looked for the chametz, we haven't found all the chametz, so whatever we haven't found, we declare that to be ownerless. That's done on Thursday night, not including the chametz that we do know about, which we're going to get to later. We can't destroy the chametz as we usually do. We make a fire the day before Pesach to destroy the chametz. This year, again, you can't burn the chametz on Shabbos. So instead, we do the burning of the chametz on Friday, and we do the burning of the chametz before midday. The reason we don't really, technically, you'll be able to burn chametz all day because there's no prohibition of owning chametz on midday on Friday. Ordinarily, we have to worry about the prohibition of owning chametz, which begins before Passover. But this year, the prohibition of eating chametz or owning chametz doesn't begin till Shabbos afternoon. But the reason we have to burn the chametz on Friday afternoon is in order that no one should make a mistake on another year and burn the chametz later. And therefore, this year, chametz is burnt before midday. So after you burn the chametz on a regular year, that's when you would recite two things. You would recite the second Kol Chamira for all the chametz that you do know about, that you have not declared ownerless the night before, because you set up some chametz for breakfast, and now you declare all the chametz that you do know about, that you don't want to have any connection to it anymore, and it is whatever chametz that you do know about, you don't know about any chametz at all, it should be declared ownerless. But you can't do this now on Friday morning, because you know about the chametz you're going to eat on Friday night, the chametz you're going to eat on Shabbos morning, and you're not declaring that ownerless. So you can't say Kol Chamira. But there's another thing that we do recite on Friday morning, or that we would recite when we burn the chametz, and that's a very beautiful prayer called Yehi Ratzon. We tell Hashem, just like I have destroyed the chametz from my home and from my domain, so too Hashem remove all of the chametz, all the negativity, all the klippa, all the evil from the world. That's a prayer we ordinarily recite on the day before Pesach. However, this year, you can't really recite it on Friday morning because you haven't destroyed all the chametz from your jurisdiction yet. You can't just say it either on Shabbos morning because that's at the time you're destroying the chametz. So when should you say it? So practically, the Rebbe said the Yehi Ratzon on Friday morning. So that's when we say the Yehi Ratzon. And the second Kol Chamira, the second declaration of all the chametz that we do know about, that should be declared ownerless, that should not belong to us anymore, that declaration we make on Shabbos morning after we finished our meal and gotten rid of the chametz. So let's now discuss the foods that we could eat or we can't eat on Friday. Our custom is not to eat matzah a whole month before Pesach, but strictly it's forbidden only the day before Pesach. And this year it's also forbidden since Erev Pesach is a Shabbos, it's also forbidden on Friday before Pesach as well. And also, ordinarily, on the day before Pesach, the morning before Pesach, we don't eat marar. We don't eat any of the fruits that are put into the chareses. That's a Chabad custom not to eat before the Seder. And this year, starting already from Friday, we don't have those items that are put into the Seder as well. So another item to consider that the Rebbe actually made a bit of a campaign of studying the special halachas that apply to this year's Pesach, and the Rebbe edited a little pamphlet about the halachas that applied to this year. And one of the things the Rebbe mentions in that pamphlet is that you should wash all your garbage cans before Shabbos, and for the chametz that you intend to use on Shabbos, should have another garbage bag, but all the garbage cans, and every year as well, before Pesach begins, you have to wash all of the garbage cans. They shouldn't have any chametz attached to them. Okay, so you're preparing for Shabbos. What are you eating on Shabbos? So you're not going to only eat Pesach food because, again, you can't eat matzah for lechem mishnah. You have to eat chametz for lechem mishnah. But on the other hand, your whole house is already ready for Pesach. So what are you going to eat? So the answer is that you should eat Pesach food aside for the challah rolls. The challah rolls, you leave a sufficient amount, not too much because you have to get rid of whatever you're not going to eat, but sufficient amount to have rolls for 2 rolls for Friday night and 2 rolls for Shabbos day. Some people prefer to use pitas because they don't make so many crumbs. But besides eating the pitas, whatever the other chametz, besides eating the chametz for the mitzvah of the lechem mishnah, you're also going to eat the regular Pesach food. Is to be conscious of a few halachas when you eat a meal on Shabbos. When you eat a meal on Shabbos, and whenever you eat a meal, of course, actually, whenever you eat a meal on Shabbos, you have to make kiddush in the same place that you eat. So here, because you're also going to eat these challah rolls, it's not going to be so convenient to have the challah rolls in the same place you have the Pesach food. So you have to consider exactly what you're going to do. Rabbi Brian, in his great halacha share that he just posted, he mentions 3 possible solutions. Either you eat the challah rolls before you eat and you make bench before you eat the Pesach food, or if you're able to somehow to have the challah rolls in the same place that you have the Pesach food, even better if that's possible, because then you're eating the challah rolls in the same place. The issue with eating the challah rolls and benching before you go to the place of the Pesach food is because there's an issue with that, because you want the cholent and the Pesach fish and kugel, whatever you're going to eat, you want to be part of the Shabbos meal. That's why it's not so preferable to bench immediately after you have the rolls and then to have the rest of the food, because you want to be part of the Shabbos meal. But if that's not possible, that's something you could do. There is another issue with having the challah rolls and then going over to the Pesach food, and the issue with that is that there is a halachic question about the brachas that are said once all the bread from the meal is removed. The reason why the bracha of a Motzei covers the meal that you're going to eat is because the meal you're eating is part of the bread that you made a bracha Motzei on. But if you completed eating all the bread, so then how can you continue eating without another bracha? You've finished all the bread. So therefore, some people, what they do is they eat the Motzei, they finish most of the roll, and then they go eat the Pesach food, and they go back to the place where they ate the challah rolls, just so they should continue eating the challah rolls. But I think I got you all confused. Bottom line is that on the night, Friday night, you only eat challah rolls. You don't make other chametz stika food besides the challah rolls. Why not? You can't make other food because any chametz stika food, because you're going to have an issue with cleaning the pots. Ordinarily on Shabbos, you're not allowed to wash a pot that you're not going to be using that Shabbos, because if you wash a pot, you wash a bowl that you're not using that Shabbos, why are you washing it? You're washing it for after Shabbos. You're not allowed to wash on Shabbos for after Shabbos. That's called being meichim Shabbos achil. So it's an issue of washing on Shabbos for the sake of using it after Shabbos. So in this scenario, you're not supposed to make any chametz stika food other than those dry challahs. You're not supposed to make any chametz stika food, because that will make you need to wash those pots. You'll have to wash the pots because you have to get rid of all the chametz. But you don't want to get into that scenario of having to wash the pots, because again, you don't wash pots that you're not using on Shabbos. But if you did make chametz stika food and you didn't obey the words of the sages not to make chametz food for this Shabbos, you made chametz stika food, so you have to wash the pots. And it's not considered preparing for after Shabbos, because you're required on Shabbos itself to get rid of the chametz stika, the chametz stika remainder that's been attached to the pots, because you have to wash that off. Why have to wash that off? Because you don't want to transgress the ownership of chametz on Pesach, and therefore it's not considered preparing from Shabbos to after Shabbos, because Shabbos itself requires you to wash those pots because they have chametz on them. But the best thing is on this Shabbos before Pesach, next Shabbos, obviously not this Shabbos, the Shabbos before Pesach, the best thing is not to eat the food you're eating on the Shabbos is all Pesach food. The only thing that's not Pesach is just the rolls. You can't use matzah, so you just use those rolls and that's it. So that's what you have on Friday night and Shabbos morning. You're supposed to daven quickly, so you'll be able to finish eating the chametz, the rolls you're going to eat for the second meal of Shabbos on Shabbos morning. So you daven early and finish early, so you'll be able to finish your meal before that time, the time that's prohibited to eat chametz. Then once you finish eating the chametz, then you make the second declaration that all chametz that I do know about should be considered ownerless. What about those crumbs that are left over from this meal? Before you recite that second kol chamira, what you do is you take the remainder of the roll and whatever is left, best to eat on a tissue or something, and then throw the remainder of the challah, break into pieces, and to flush in the toilet and get rid of it. And then you recite the kol chamir and declare the rest of the whatever chametz you knew about to be considered not yours anymore and ownerless. So you eat the rolls, whatever's left over, you throw in the toilet. And the little paper plate or something, if you ate on a paper plate, whatever, that you could throw in the garbage. What you can't do is, people make a mistake, you can take the remainder of the roll, wrap it up in the tablecloth and put it into a garbage bag. The reason you can't do that is because that's still chametz in your domain, and it is it's not it doesn't stop being chametz just because it's in the garbage bag. The language of Shulchan Aruch is you shake out the tablecloth on the floor, and the remaining crumbs are considered like they're destroyed because they're on the floor. But putting them in the garbage bag and into the toilet would not work. People also make another mistake, and they say, well, I'm selling this room or this cabinet for chametz, and I will put the remaining chametz in the cabinet that is being sold for chametz. So I have the chametz that's being sold in this cabinet, and I'm eating this challah. I have leftover challah. I don't want to put it in my toilet, so I'm just going to put this in the cabinet. There's an issue with putting it in the cabinet. What's the issue? The issue is that the chametz that was sold yesterday. It's not being sold now. It was sold yesterday. So you can't now add to the sale and put chametz now in that cabinet, because that it's identical to taking the chametz and putting it in a non-Jew's house. It doesn't stop being yours just because it's in someone else's house. The chametz that was sold yesterday was sold. What you're adding now to this cabinet, it's identical to putting chametz in someone else's house. It doesn't stop. Your ownership of it doesn't stop, and the prohibition is on Pesach not to own chametz. So you can take the chametz. The only thing you could do is have to destroy it. But any items that were used, let's say if there was a tablecloth, the tablecloth could be put away there in that room that's being sold to the non-Jew, but or any item that you cook chametz with could be put in that room as well. Let's say a person made a mistake and they cooked chametz before Shabbos started, and they washed off that vessel. What do they do with that vessel now? They put that vessel, they put that bowl, that pot, they put that in that room. How does it help to put that bowl there? Well, that pot is different than the chametz itself. Why is it different than the chametz itself? The Alter Rebbe says that when you sell chametz, you're also selling any pot that has chametz on it. So clearly, if a pot has chametz on it, that needs to be sold as well. And therefore, there'll be a problem with selling. There'll be a problem with trying to include this pot in the sale of chametz because you sold it yesterday. However, since you already cleaned the pot off from the chametz, you could put that pot there. But one second, that would mean that you're owning the chametz pot on Shabbos. It's not a problem. In fact, everyone has chametz vessels that remain in their ownership on Shabbos. You have a counter, and the counter, let's say you were unable to kosher the counter. The counter has formica or whatever it is and can't be koshered. What do? You cover it with, according to some sefer, you make 3 coverings. You make 2 coverings, and that way there is no possibility of you using that counter on Shabbos. And same as also, it says in Tov Nun Aleph and Shulchan Aruch, it says any vessel that was used to cook chametz, what do you do with it? On Pesach, you put it in a room so that you won't forget to use it on Pesach. The issue is not ownership. You're allowed to own something that doesn't have chametz on it. The issue is you might cook with it. So by putting it in a room that's sold for chametz, that will prevent you from forgetting and using that pot on Pesach. So what you do is you take that pot and you put in the room, and that is sufficient. However, the chametz itself, that's an issue. You have to get rid of it. What if you have a lot of chametz left over? So there is and you can't fit it all into the toilet. So one possibility is to give it as a present to a non-Jew. Another possibility is to put it into a bleach solution. But the best thing is, again, not to get into this issue. What some people do is they have egg matzah. Egg matzah is a great solution because it's not regular matzah and it's not chametz. The problem with egg matzah is egg matzah mezenis, and on Shabbos you want to make a bracha hametzi, and you can't make a bracha hametzi on egg matzah unless you have 4 measurements of an egg, which is about 8 ounces, and that satiates you, which is quite a lot of egg matzah. You're not allowed to. So otherwise, you're not allowed to say a bracha hametzi on it. You say mezenis, which is not what you usually do on Shabbos. On Shabbos, you usually say hametzi, and you have lechem mishnah. There are those who say that there's a whole discussion about how exactly the sale of chametz works on this kind of a year, because the sale for chametz is done on Friday, right? So you're continuing to eat chametz. So the chametz you're eating, how does that work? Was the chametz you're eating part of the sale? Well, it wasn't part of the sale because you're still eating it. So some say that it was sold, and in order for a sale to be valid, there is what's called a kinyan, an act of acquisition. And the act of acquisition was done on Friday with the intent that the sale should only take place on Shabbos. And that perhaps that may, if that was true, that would work. The problem is, Rabbi Akiva Eger says that does not work. It says it's forbidden to make a kinyan on Friday so that should work on Shabbos. It's an issue. And therefore, you cannot assume that the challah, you're going to leftover challah, you're going to put in that room and relying on the sale that was made yesterday that it should only apply on Shabbos. It's not done that way. Because Rabbi Akiva Eger says you're not allowed to make a kinyan on Friday for Shabbos. There's another option. Others say, well, how about this? The kinyan is done on Friday, and what is being sold? Whatever is in the designated chametz area is going to be sold. There are some items there now. There will be other items there later, and whatever items will be there tomorrow will be included in the sale. There's an issue with that. The issue with that is that halachically that's called breda. Breda means where you do something and you haven't yet designated what you mean by that act. So the sale is being done, and we don't know what the meaning of the sale is until tomorrow. And we want to say that, what's being included, what I did yesterday, retroactively, it should include whatever is put in their room today. So there is a halachic leniency to do that for rabbinical issues. But the ownership of chametz is a biblical issue. It's asr min ha-Torah, the biblical issue to own chametz. And since there is a biblical issue of owning chametz on Pesach, therefore it's not okay to say that the chametz you'll put in the room will be considered as if it was part of the sale yesterday, because you're just putting that in the you're putting that in there today, and so breira doesn't work for the Yom Deraisa. Now you might want to say, well, I do bittul, I declare the chametz ownerless. Since I'm declaring it ownerless, so it's only, as we learned last week, there's only a rabbinical prohibition of having chametz in your house once you've declared it ownerless. But the Alter Rebbe clearly says that the chametz that's part of the sale is not included in what you declare ownerless. There's some chametz that you declare ownerless, and that chametz you are trying to remove from your house, whatever you don't find, you don't know, you're not aware of. You say that whatever I did not find should be ownerless. The chametz you put in those closets, that's, you're selling them. You don't have to declare them ownerless. You have to keep them in your house because they're not yours. So if you're putting a challah roll into that room on Shabbos morning, clearly that's not part of the sale, and therefore there is an issue with doing that. And so therefore the bottom line is that you cannot put the chametz in that room. You have to either eat all of it, or put it in the toilet, or give it to a non-Jew, or put it into a bleach solution. But again, you can't put it into your garbage. If you have an erev in that city where you're living, there's an erev, and you are able to bring the chametz to a place outside and declare it ownerless, not in a area in your apartment building where everyone's using that. Still, you have some share there too. But in some other ownerless area, public area, that might be a possibility. There are others that say that don't confuse you with what others say. Let's say a few more practical things. The Rebbe once farbrengen on Shabbos, this kind of Shabbos, in 1981, and the Rebbe said he's not drinking wine, as it says, you're not supposed to drink wine on Shabbos afternoon. Instead, the Rebbe came to farbrengen with bananas and water. You're not allowed to prepare on Shabbos for the Seder. Anything has to be done for the Seder. You can't prepare on Shabbos, you can prepare on Friday. You go ready for the Seder for Motzei Shabbos, that's fine. But you can't prepare on Shabbos for Saturday night. After we say mincha on Shabbos afternoon, we say mincha a little bit earlier because we have to say Shabbos HaGadol, aside for the drasha of Shabbos HaGadol, which you can't do on that Shabbos, but everyone's busy in the morning to rush home. That's done this coming Shabbos. But after mincha on Shabbos HaGadol, we recite the Haggadah, and after the Haggadah, we say the Korban Pesach. And Alter Rebbe says the Korban Pesach is supposed to be recited before Shkia. One more practical thing, and that is people have false teeth. They need to kosher them before Pesach. Should kosher them before Shabbos. When you want to get rid of the challah that's left in your teeth on Shabbos, so you could use a dry toothbrush, you could use cut up floss, you could use a toothpick, but you can't use anything that's going to make your teeth bleed. If you're the type of person that your teeth always bleed whenever you clean them, you can't use a toothpick, you can't use denture, you can't use dental floss that's make your teeth bleed, but otherwise you can. If you have fillings and you ordinarily before Pesach you drink hot water to, so to speak, kosher your teeth, that could be done on Shabbos, just drinking hot water. But to immerse something into to kosher them as before to kosher an item that comes out of your mouth, that should be done before Shabbos begins. Main thing is that the Eibusher should send us Mashiach Tzidkenu, and we should celebrate Pesach in Yerushalayim and HaKodesh, and celebrate tonight in Yerushalayim and HaKodesh, and with dancing and singing. Have a wonderful evening, and see you soon.